All right, perfect. Well, hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody. And, to the extent that I could extend any sort of empathy or uh, compassion of what everybody's dealing with right now, I'll attempt to do. I hope that your families are well and healthy and safe. And I know we're battling a multitude of enemies all at the same time. And those of us here in California are, covered in ash, in our backyards and front yards. We're dealing with a pandemic, dealing with schools not being open across the country, pools not being accessible as we're used to. So to the extent that you guys can be in a safe and healthy position, and we can extend our empathy to you, I hope that you guys are all well, and that you can, and that you're managing as best you can. So when it comes to ODP, we want to navigate this to the best of our ability. Our number one goal here with ODP this season is just to get something off the ground any way possible. We know that in some places it's going to be difficult. It may not be able to happen. We also know that in some places it may be the only water polo activity that can be out there. So we want to do the best that we can to have that happen. So this is not uniform. This is probably the 100th Zoom meeting you've been on, and all the other things that you're a part of. I know that ODP is something else that you do in your time, and we appreciate that. We appreciate the effort and the time and energy you're putting into it on top of all your other responsibilities. So thank you for that. We won't be long. We just want to kind of explain what's happening through the year, and also make sure kind of we're on the same page as we navigate this together. In the agenda that was sent to you, there's a link right next to the word agenda. I put a link to that ODP coach microsite. So anything that we can do to update that microsite and have information that's on there for you, please always check that and have that as a resource for you. I'll soon hand it over to Ann and Megan and Brian and Sean and our team here, and I'll let them kind of give you some of the details. But just I'll give you the 30,000 foot overview here. Is to make sure that you guys know that, one, it's going to be a little bit different of a product this fall. So this idea of running like ODP camps in the same way that we've always been able to run camps is obviously not going to be feasible. So camps meaning like your normal 8-hour day in a one-day camp, your normal 10 to 12-hour day, a weekend outside of California, as we try to do. What we've gathered from all of you, right, is that the camps clinics, is what we're going to call them, will be between 4 or 6 hours. And so we want to be clear that the language is not a camp. It's not your normal ODP camp. It's going to be a clinic, right? It's a clinic where there may not be able to be scrimmaging. There may not be body-on-body contact, initial, right? We're going to be able to run our technical skills. Brian will go over, and Sean will go over practice plans later in terms of what we can pull off. But it'll be categorized as a clinic. The good news about calling it a clinic or categorizing it as a clinic, although we won't be able to scrimmage or do other things, it will be open to any level of membership for USA Water Polo, meaning bronze members will be allowed to sign up for it. All right. So if you have in your zone bronze members with USA Water Polo, this will make the clinics more accessible. And so any chance that you can run more than a few clinics in your area, we can run as many as you will allow us to, right? So in the course of a clinic too, that also means if it's a 4-hour thing, we may not be able to get our full staff there, meaning your staff will be the ones mainly in charge of it on the zone level. So it may be difficult for us to get national team coaches out, goalie coaches out. We'll do our best in those situations, but in the scenario of flying someone across the country in this environment for 4 hours of a clinic isn't necessarily prudent, right? So what you're going to find is, and besides travel restrictions, as we know, in a lot of states that still require quarantine when people are crossing state lines and things like that. So understand that if you're running a clinic, it's going to be open, it's going to be accessible for more members in your area and more athletes in your area, but it's also going to be something that your staff is generally going to be running, and hopefully getting as many as we can in that range. So understand that that's the pathway. Within that, and our staff will talk about this right now, there's still hopefully a pathway for that to be an evaluatory process, right? So in the clinic session, can we evaluate, can this still lead to making a zone team? And whether or not, I'll talk about this maybe again at the end, the ability to run regional and national championships is still unknown, right? Because that's a ways out. But we'd still like to be able to use these clinics to identify athletes, to name them. And so you'll have to use a variety of things other than just a clinic to identify your zone teams, right? Relying on high school coaches, club coaches, other people for recommendations to make sure that you're getting eyes on not just someone who was in your clinic for 4 hours. One more thing before I pass it off too is that we've had some success in planning with Coach Flax, who's on here right now. Coach Ethan's not on here right now, but on the girls' side, but to have some pathway for the academy athletes. So we will have an academy, try to have academy this fall, right, where we can have similar things where maybe on some weekends we can get together, have some physically distant training, get the athletes together, keep them moving so that we have some pipeline activity as well along with ODP. The idea is, or the known quantity is that there's likely not going to be a UANA championship this year. There were no pipeline teams or trips this year. So can we give those pipeline athletes, an opportunity to potentially train more, and again, if travel restrictions open up, have some travel and competition at the end of this. But again, all of that being unknown. So that's the overview of where we're going. I think, again, most important that you guys are safe and healthy, but know that the silver lining in all this is that I think in this model, we might be able to affect and have more athletes involved and some new athletes and some make this more accessible than we've had before in ODP. And I'm excited about that part. And we can work through this together, and obviously specifically in your zones as it goes. So, and I'll turn it over to you. You can talk a little bit about pricing and some of those things. At the end, we'll answer questions as we can come through. If you have something that you want answered in the meantime, you can throw it in the chat or text me or Anna, Brian, or Sean, or Megan, and we can get to it at the end. But yeah, let's keep going.
All right. Thanks, John. We are going to have 2 different types of clinics. There'll be the 4-hour clinic, which would be predominantly California, but not opposed to having that out of California either. And then the 6-hour clinic. So 4 hours is $100, 6 hours is $150. So you can see our prices have come down considerably. Plus, we've opened it up to all membership types, as John said. So we're trying to cast our net a little wider. And then, you can ask, well, what about, if I have a lot of demand? If I can only have 50 athletes and, I have 4 hours, what do we do when it sells out? We can run 2 sessions in one day, a session 1 in the morning and a session 1 in the afternoon. Some areas I know in Hawaii, Dave Schiffner likes to do 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday. So each of those is a separate clinic now. Ends up being the same price if the athlete chooses to do both days, but they don't have to. Some areas are doing 6 hours on Saturday being the boys and 6 hours on Sunday being the girls. That works too. So there's a lot of flexibility with this model, and we're open to whatever you can do, and just communicate with us. We'll work it out with you guys. We just want to make it happen. And once again, just so you know, the Shieldy pricing is there. So if you have an athlete that is Shieldy, it automatically will come up as $35 for them. So trying not to have any barriers with our clinics, and open it up. Oops, I don't know if I'm stable here. Open it up to as many as possible. So Brian, you're next.
All right, that's my turn. All right, thanks, Ann. Hey, great to see everybody. And just one more time, want a big shout out to Ann and John for getting this new pricing together and the Shieldy and opening this up to bronze membership. This is a huge step for us, not only in ODP, but in growing our sport. So thank you guys for getting that done. I know that the financial barrier has been there in the past, and hopefully this year we're starting anew and starting afresh, and hopefully soon coming out of the COVID that we're going to get more kids playing water polo, more kids at our ODP camp. So thank you guys. So I certainly appreciate it. So just talking about camps, just going to kind of reiterate what's already been said. I know that each zone is going to be unique and each gender is going to be unique. So I'm just asking that you work with me as far as practice plans goes. In a normal setting, last spring, I would have been with the senior teams and spending time with Gavin and with Dan and videotaping and getting content for this year's ODP cycle, and that just didn't happen. So we are using a lot of the physically distant training. We actually have a training coming up in a week from Sunday in San Diego is going to be our 2020-2021 kickoff for ODP with Pacific Southwest girls. So we're pretty excited about that. So it's all new content this year. So you're going to get a practice plan that is going to be unique to this year. And so we'll see what happens in the year to come. But at least for now, we're going to have a physically distant practice plan. So be looking for that. And I will work with all the zones in developing a plan that's going to work for you. Again, based on pool size, based on athlete to coach ratio. That's going to be a big one. You know, how many athletes are going to be allowed into the facility at that same time. So I understand some of this stuff can be a little boilerplate, but others are going to be unique. You know, and there'll be some places that are going to be allowed to scrimmage. So we're not at that place yet. But please work with me if you have any questions. And as we get closer to your camps, we'll start working together and developing practice plans for your camp. So those are going to be super flexible. There's not really a template this year like we've had in the past. We're trying to get video on everything that we have. So you shouldn't have any questions. There should be video demonstrations on just about everything that we're going to do. So working on that and going back into a lot of stuff that I did 5 years ago and searching my drive for videos when I was coaching high school and club and the national team and trying to find stuff, you know, that's physically distant. So with that being said, age groups, all-stars, and our all-stars are going to be anybody that's a senior in high school that's born in 2002, and then all the 2003s. So that's our all-star age group this year. And then youth is going to be that single birth year again, it's 2004. And then cadets are going to be the double birth year again, 2005, 2006. And then the development is going to be 2007 and under. So a little bit of a tweak there. We realized we kind of missed these 2002s. And if there's an 02 that's in a senior in high school, they can be involved and can make potentially one of the all-star teams, and they can certainly come to camps for sure. John already kind of touched on this with evaluation. So these are going to be unique. He had mentioned the fact that, you know, we're going to have to get involved with our club coaches, with our high school coaches as well. This is something that we haven't really done. A lot of zones haven't done in the past. And it's a really good practice to get in touch with the club coaches that have their athletes attending these camps and asking them, hey, these are your kids that came to camp. Which ones would you recommend for a zone team? Getting you know, a personal recommendation from a club coach or a high school coach. I think this is going to be super important this year. We're hopefully we are going to be proceeding like we're going to select from for a zone team. So that needs to be the intent when we're going to these clinics, is that we're going to be doing selections at some point. So we should know a lot about that athlete. It's going to be hard to do in a physically distant environment. So we're going to need that extra input for sure. So talking to club coaches is very important. So we can want to make sure that we're going to be evaluating them. We are looking at doing some metrics this year. So normally we've done a swim test. I think that 200 for time is probably out the window at this point. So we're looking at doing some other skills so we have some measured. We have some metrics on the athletes when they come to camp. Okay, or sorry, when they come to this clinic. I think that's going to be super important for us, just justifying roster selections and whatnot, or not justifying roster selections, to have those metrics on these athletes. So if you're all familiar with 6-8 challenge, so I don't know that it would necessarily be the 6-8 challenge. There might be elements of that, and then some other things too. But trying to make some short, consistent tests that can be easily administrated. And so we have some data on these athletes before they leave camp. So and it shouldn't take too long. I can imagine it taking more than 45 minutes to run these drills on these camps. All right, I think that was about it for me. I'll pass it off to Ann again.
Yeah, back to me. So some kind of bad news about holiday camp. They will not allow us to be in their dorms or have anybody in their dorms until there is a vaccine. I don't know if can you hear me? Okay, well, anyhow. So holiday camp will be virtual this year. So Megan and I are working on this and trying to figure out exactly what that will look like. But we want to go through the selection process like we normally do and select athletes to attend the virtual holiday camp. We'll have it on the same weekends. It'll just be the 2 days, the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, that we normally would have had holiday camp. And we'll also have Coaches Academy on one of those weekends and referee school on one of those weekends. So try to give it as much normalcy as possible, but you know, it won't be the same, but we'll try and do some little things for the athletes, send them a t-shirt and a certificate and those kind of things, evaluations possibly. We're working on some different ideas. And then other things are just logistical things. If you have new staff that needs a polo on the microsite, you'll see a link to the polo doc. Megan's been sending those out already to people that have input that. Balls, she's working with all the zone head coaches. Those that don't need them, appreciate that. It's just one of those years that we're trying to save costs if we can. And then our giveaways are timely. We have a mask, a USA water polo mask for one of the giveaways, and then a antibacterial keychain for the other giveaway. So lastly, if you haven't determined your staff and you haven't sent it to me yet and to Brian, we would appreciate if you could determine that and send it to us so we can get the new coaches employment packages. We can't have anyone on deck that's not filled out their paperwork. So I think that's it for me. One thing I just wanted to make sure too, when you are booking your pools, make sure you find out the capacity that you're able to have. You know, sometimes it may be 40, maybe 50, maybe 60. I don't know, some pools may still allow you to have 100, but we need to know that so we can limit the registration. We have a camp in Texas. The boys limit is 50 and it's in 3 days is sold out. So we just need to know that. Otherwise we'll have people signing up for camps that they are not able to attend. That's it for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Brian and John, too, for having us all on. So actually, kind of starting with one of Ann's points in terms of staffing, we're going to try to get goalkeeper coaches to all of these, right? But we're going to try to limit the travel as much as possible, trying to stay off of planes. Actually, over the last couple of years, I've done a relatively okay job with kind of spacing out my goalkeeper coaches from around the country, but there's still a couple zones that are missing goalkeeper coaches. And so when you go and you're asking for people to be parts of your staff, I'd love to have you keep in the back of your minds whether or not somebody is knowledgeable with goalkeepers or has a goalkeeper coaching experience. And if you have any suggestions, this is the year to bring them in. And try them out, and we'd love to have them at those local trainings. So we are going to try to staff every single camp, but it may not happen, and so that's where you all would come in, and probably we need to have some contingency plans for that scenario. You have a lot of information that's been given to you through that microsite. There's a goalkeeper tab on it with all the information that I would be coaching. So figuring out prior to your camp, if we know you're not going to have a coach, who's going to be working with those goalkeepers, making sure they're up to date with, you know, that knowledge, looking at the videos, making sure that they're ready to go and coach for us, coach the goalkeepers. So learning opportunity for all of us, really, to be honest. One of the most important things is getting video on the goalkeepers. There's really, it helps me tremendously. Even like 10 seconds, 20 seconds of watching video on a kid, like I'm going to have a pretty good idea of kind of a few things that they need to work on and where they're at. And so if we can make sure that every single every single player gets video at those camps. So in case there's not a goalkeeper coach, we'll need to make sure that happens and there's a coach assigned to that. So yeah, Pacific Northwest, I'm still waiting to hear back from Jamie Comer. But Pacific Northwest, if there's a goalkeeper coach there. Miguel, you're in Midwest zone, but you may not be up in Chicago. I'm not sure. And you have a lot of hats. So Midwest zone, Southeast zone, Jenny Metzdorf would go local, but she can't travel. So Southeast zone, Great Lakes zone, we don't have anybody. Mountain zone, we have somebody who's going to fly in for Salt Lake City, but nobody in Denver. And then Southwest zone, we have Dean coming to Austin, but I'm not sure on the other camp. So make sure that if you're talking to athletes and goalkeepers, that they know that they're going to get that specific goalkeeper training, even though the camps are shortened. So we'll still have basically close to, if not the same amount of time as the last couple of years, probably depending on that 4-hour or 6-hour camp. But yeah, we'll make sure, as Brian is trying to get video of all of his drills that he's going to be doing, I'm going to be doing the same for the goalkeeper. So in case there isn't a goalkeeper coach, you can review the videos of the drills. And we're going to try to streamline it, make sure it's really simplified and easy and flexible. I know you probably have to dip into the goalies and then dip out and deal with field players. And so making sure that works with everybody. So just making sure everyone's flexible, understanding. Again, we're going to try to get goalkeeper coaches to all your camps, but it may not happen. And, yeah, so looking forward to being on deck for sure with everybody. And that's about it for me.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, and everyone for that. I mean, this is essentially, I think, the year 2020 is a masterclass in flexibility for all of us, right? So that's what this is all about, is being flexible in these practice plans and stepping into roles that we need, and especially in terms of planning. So last part is here, thinking about the major events, which are still going to be unknown for us. So I know, Tim, you put that in the chat, and in the agenda it says there, right, with what's the plan for regional championships, national championships, any USAWP major event, and all that still to be determined, right? So ideally, we'd love to keep regional championships in January in the West and in North Carolina, right? Meaning in Salt Lake City and in North Carolina, as we've done. Ideally, we'd love to do that, but that's not up to us, right? So as we get closer here and we keep planning ahead, we'll find out what we can do. Same with national championships. Ideally, we'd love to have a national championship, but not sure if that's going to be feasible. In light of or in lieu of a national championship, we could potentially be flexible and have more regional championships, right? And break things down on smaller levels. Same thing with NTSCs or with any other major events that we can do. Anything that we can do more regionally, we'll obviously try to plan to do, right? So it's whatever we're going to be allowed to do. We're going to try, but with the theme that potentially more regional events would be the more accessible for people, right? As it comes to costs, as it comes to restrictions, as it comes to any of those things, I think the more regionalized we can be, the better, right? And the better for everybody. And so I think that's what you have to look for. Like we have to look forward to in terms of the major events. But just know that, obviously we'd love to see those happen, but we're going to have to be flexible with all of that. And so if you guys have any questions or concerns, just make sure you guys are reaching out to everybody, reaching out to all of us in terms of how we can help. Please stay in touch with Brian about your specific practice plans and how you can work within that. I could circle. I knew I was thinking circle back to one more thing as I see some of you on here for Coach Academy, right? The Coach Academy dates that normally we would have done one on the boys' holiday camp date and the girls' holiday camp date. We're looking at the first weekend, so that's the December 4th, 5th weekend for Coach Academy, and that Ian and Drew and us will open up registration here soon on that to try to get as many people in there. Normally, that Coach Academy for your coaches in your area and for yourselves, right, as you want to be, would be limited to like 30 per weekend. And again, one of the silver linings of the virtual world is, right, we'll be able to have more people involved, right, and have more coaches there. So it's something to something else to look forward to. And so keep that in mind as we do that. Same with holiday camp, as much as we can do on those dates, right? We want those athletes who weren't selected last year because they were in 7th grade and now they're going in 8th grade, and we're expecting to be selected for holiday camp. We want to give them that that opportunity to be selected, go through the process, and feel good about that. And so, keep that in mind as well. And so, I see a few questions kind of trickling in here. Ideally, when would we want teams selected? I think we're still going to shoot for the kind of normal pathway on the team selection time, right? Like if you can get your camps, if you get all your clinics done that you can get, then what we would try to get those teams done for regional championships in January. Again, that's kind of still TBD. James asking about equipment. What we're trying to do, James, is not have any new equipment be purchased, right, for those, right? We want those to be, like Brian said, easily administered, easily done, right? So I don't think we need anything we select won't require any new equipment, right? So hopefully stuff that you already have or things that you can work with on deck, for the test. That's the goal, there. And so Jamie asking, is the new structure for this year required to make your zone team? Ultimately, yes. We would like them to attend the clinic, right, to be seen. But as you're working with athletes in your area and coaches in your area, we can talk more about any specific athletes as needed. But I think there may be some exceptions that need to be made in this climate, right? If an athlete may be immunocompromised or doesn't feel comfortable coming to a camp or any of these things that could be there, I'd be open to having those we'd be open to having those conversations, right? But it's like I said, flexibility is key here, right? So, but ideally, we'd want them to turn to the clinic so they can meet the coaches and see everybody.
Well, John, if I could jump in real quick,
please.
Please. One last thing. We kind of glanced over it, but glossed over it. But the whole traditional ODP structure that we've had, where we've had 2 camps, then we've made a selection, then we've done a training and gone to our regional or our national championship. That really isn't going to exist anymore. We can do as many clinics in your, I said clamps, I'm getting confusing myself, clinics in your zone as you want, as you feel the need for. So those would be different areas of your zone, or they can be in the same area, but where we have a large number of athletes that want to go, especially if we're dealing with a pool capacity issue. We're going to do 3 in San Diego, which we've never really done. We've only done like 2. So, we're going to do multiple camps in these clinics in these zones, so we can get to more kids, more touches, put one later in the year. So it's happening, maybe during a high school season. That's totally okay to do. So don't think you're restricted by just doing 2 clinics. You can definitely do more than that, and maybe even space those out, and not announce a roster like right away. I would say, like John's saying, we're waiting on announcing anything until late in the year for sure. And some of you want me to have camps by then. So, there's really no reason to select athletes unless we have a reason to select athletes.
And also, Christy, I was asking about camps. We can go all the way through 2020. It'd be ideal if we can get some clinics in 2020, in case we do have regionals or nationals. If possible, clinics in 2020 would be ideal. And Sean, Momo, Northeast has Betsy Armstrong. Yeah, one of the best goalie coaches. So.
Yeah, Momo, we've got, I was just
Yes,
typing. We've got Betsy, and then we also have Nicholas coming back. And then, one thing we haven't talked about, I guess, I don't know if it's for this forum, but Felix could potentially coach. It just depends on whether he's allowed to see athletes or not. So you may also have Felix. So we have the Northeast zone covered. And for Southeast zone,
thank you.
I'm not quite sure. Again, depends on how comfortable Jenny is traveling. And then, if one of those Northeast zone coaches wants to go on vacation driving.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, one of the challenge that Sean's describing is that if the NCAA dead period continues and compliance issues, as we have college coaches, we have college coaches on this call, right? We have a lot of college coaches on our staff. Those rules will be, are limiting right now. We're even having a hard time getting some compliance officers to allow college coaches to do public interviews and things that have other people on. So it's going to vary from institution to institution and conference, and frankly, whatever the NCAA decides, which is very difficult thing to predict, as time goes on here. So, but yeah, that's one of the challenges that Sean's describing, but those are all good points. Anything else? Any other questions?
There's Chelsea wanted to know if the clinics are by age group in California. Yes, you would have a cadet and youth maybe together, or depending on your numbers, development separate. But yes, same as the clinics in that sense will be the same. Outside California, they'll be done, all ages together, and in California broken down by age group.
Yeah.
And yes, James, they should try and attend a clinic. I mean, this is only a 4-hour clinic. We're not asking for 2-day commitments. So ideally, if they're going to be selected, they should attend a clinic.
Appreciate your efforts, guys. I know a lot of the questions now may come in are going to be specific to your zone or your area. So as you guys have zone specific questions, again, feel free to reach out to us. We're gonna do our best to have as much as we can. I think there's to wrap it up. I think there's always going to be positive things that we could take away from this. As much as I know we're all dealing with many issues, and I think one of those things is accessibility to ODP, as we've talked about, and as we get into more regional work here, we're going to grow we can try to grow the sport regionally and in our zones as much as we can, and try to work on that. Opening up the bottom of the pyramid while at the same time, working with our national team coaches to keep the top of the pyramid, moving as well, right? So we want to do it. We can do both, and ODP has always challenged itself as doing both, right? Growing the sport and also competing at elite level. So I think we can still continue to do that together. So I appreciate your efforts, and if you guys have any specific questions, let's ask them offline about your zone so that we can get to your specific needs, which are going to be varied across the board here, no doubt.
I have one more comment, because I know I'll get asked. The pay for coaches to attend camps, clinics will remain the same. So it's $250, and we're going to keep that in place.
Okay.
I have a question for Ann, if you'll allow it.
Sure.
If I'll allow it, sure.
Yeah,
it's allowed.
You're the master of the ceremonies here.
Yeah.
Setting up what we would consider to be a 4th camp. Is there anything different that you need from us as opposed to when we would normally do just 3 camps per season? Just set it up. Okay.
Time pool, number of participants allowed. And please know that most of the setting up of the camps and everything is done by Megan. So you please include her. She's really that's behind the scenes doing all the work on ODP. So please include her on your emails.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves, and let's do our best with what we can here. Appreciate what you guys are doing for all these athletes in your zone. So thank you again. Take care. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.